Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
All right, here we are, guys. This is episode 92. I'm Jack Murphy here with Dave Park. This is The Team House. This is Jeff Miller and Nick Brokhausen on the show tonight. We had Nick on the show once before. He's the author of Whispers in the Tall Grass and We Few.
It was episode 76. You should check it out.
Good call. Yeah, you guys should go and check it out if you haven't already. We talked about his time in Vietnam with MACV-SOG, and now we have Nick and Jeff back on the show to talk about their friendship and their business partnership after their Special Forces service, and how they met, their entry into the private security world, which was nothing at all like it is today. It's very different in its sort of embryonic state. And we'll start talking about some of their adventures that are in their new book called Vagabonds.
Yeah, welcome, guys. We're really happy to have you. One of the things that we do when people come on is to ask them their origin stories, like their superhero origin stories. And Nick, even though we've had you on before, some of our viewers may not have seen that yet. So can we just really quickly get an overview of your backgrounds before you sort of came together? You know, just kind of the
thumbnail sketch. Yeah.
This is a trick question.
Because he didn't really exist before he met me.
I didn't have a history before I met Miller. I woke up one day, he was there.
Is this like
I came out of the Special Forces community. I'm a Vietnam era and dinosaur. I left Vietnam. I also served in a number of other groups in that. After that, I was in Berlin with the Detachment A, and that's where I severed my ties with the military. Was in Berlin, and then went on to I'm out of the Army, and I'm going, well, I could be a rock star, except I can't play a guitar, or I could find some other line of work. And that's, as Miller left the service like 4 or 5 months after I did, and we ended up in the same place, and we had this brilliant idea that we could take what we had been on the front line of, which was developing an anti-terrorist capability for, Dead A had one, and then Charlie came along and provided Delta. There was blue light in between there somewhere. But take that knowledge and apply it to police departments. So their first contract was with the International Association of Chiefs of Police. That's one of the chapters. There's some very interesting characters in that chapter.
And Jeff, what about you? We know that Nick was MACV-SOG, and a bit about his background. But tell us a little bit about yours, if you don't mind.
I'll try and keep this as short as I can. Okay, I'm done. No.
My memory.
I wanted to be a spy when I was young. So I went down and enlisted in the U.S. Army when I was 19 years old to be a area intelligence specialist. And I thought that would be a very cool career choice. And because of that, I chose that MOS. I had to get a clearance before I could even enlist. And I had to get letters of recommendation from a teacher and an employer and a friend and blah, 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 and do this whole story. Which put my enlistment off about 5 months from when I originally thought I was going to go in. They get down to what in those days was called the Armed Forces Entrance and Examination Station in Los Angeles. And I took the oath of enlistment and everything. And then I saw this E7. I didn't know that's what it was at the time, but I thought,
Despicable.
and he said, well, I see you're, I think it was 96 Charlie or something like that. 97 Charlie, I don't know, it was a long time ago. It's the 29th of September today. That MOS has been filled up this month.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what does that mean? And he said, well, it's no big deal. He said, I just have to put you down for something else right here. And when you get up to Fort Ord, just start basic, just tell them it'll be October 1st and everything will be wide open and just say you want to change. And I said, well, okay. So he put me down to be a supply clerk.
Jeff, hold on one second. Can we have you sit back a little bit? We're not picking you up on the audio, and I think it's just because your mic is right. Maybe.
That better?
Yeah.
Okay. So I went to basic training, and I got up there and they said, no matter what those assholes down at APs told you, whatever MOS is on your form, that's what you're going to get. You can't change now. Don't come bothering us with it. So I went to Fort Lee, Virginia and trained to be a supply clerk. And they sent me to Combat Developments Command to do my clerking, and I couldn't stand it. So one day I wandered into the Special Forces recruitment thing, and I met Sergeant Jack Davis, and he recruited me to come to group. And there's a whole story behind that I'm not going to get into now, but I wound up there. So I went through training group as a commo man, and I graduated somehow and went to the 6th Special Forces group, and I'd only been there for maybe 6 weeks. When the company sergeant major came to me, his name was Rush Tyndall, and he said, there's a VIP over at Moon Hall looking for a Special Forces NCO. Every group, at that time, the 3rd, the 7th, and the 6th were Bragg. Every group sent in a candidate, and we're sending you, and you better get picked because it would be very prestigious for the group. And I said, okay, I'll do my best. So I go over there, and I'm in the waiting room with an E6 from the 7th group and another E5 from the 3rd group. And I was the second one called into the office. And here's this colonel, resplendent with medals and badges and shit all over his uniform. It looked like a Christmas tree.
They come like that.
Yeah, that's why colonels are issued. But he was doing a project directly for the Deputy Chief of Staff of Intelligence, which at that time was a general named Meyer, and he wanted an enlisted helper. And he'd been the S2 of the 77th group when it was founded. So he wanted a Special Forces guy. So he says to me, Sergeant Miller, could I possibly interest you in a temporary duty assignment in military intelligence? And I said, oh, sir, do I have a story to tell you? And I told him how I'd wound up there in the first place, and he picked me. So I got to go off with him for a while and do secret stuff. And then later, when I was at the 10th group, I got picked for another assignment out of a group at Fort Meade, Maryland, and I just sort of backed my way into the intelligence business.
So then, how did you two gentlemen meet later on in your careers?
In court.
We met at Flintlock, during a Flintlock at Echterdingen Air Force Base in Germany. And I was working for Exercise Directorate Headquarters, and Nick was working as an asset. He'd come down from Berlin and was, deep undercover as a German, helping the A-teams get themselves situated when they jumped in. And there's a whole thing that involved underage women and...
Let's get into that.
Not too deeply.
I'm coming in, and I'm living down in an area, and I've got assets that are other SF guys that are playing the part of, being an OSS type. And John Liner, one of them, is living in an insane asylum. That's where he's hiding the A-team. And the 82nd is looking everywhere, but they can't get inside to check the rooms. So I have to go back up to Echterdingen to report to my case officer. At that time was Richie Herbst. And I'm driving in the back gate. I mean, EDH, when Flintlock's going on, it's like Tent City. They've got this group over here, and they've got people that are playing the part of the opposition force. They might be an infantry unit that protects a Hawk missile battery. So they're all housed there, and they're going out doing different things. I'm coming in the back gate, and when I come in the back gate, Echterdingen is an Air Force base. So the unit patch for the command is some kind of huge insect eating a MiG. And the colonel's wife had the emblem done on the side of this dirt burn in flowers. And it was like 6 feet across. And so I'm driving down in my Mercedes, come down, and I see these lights, backup lights, coming down the road at a high rate of speed. And off in the distance, I could see blue lights, obviously the MPs, but maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles off. And this staff car shoots past me on the cross street net, goes up the embankment, does a donut and a half to the flowers, and then engine dies, it slides down to the bottom of the hill. The driver's door open, and that's him right there. The only thing you can say is, you need to help me get out of here. There was also a young lady involved that was there with him. But that's how I met him. There he was in all his glory.
It sort of sounds like it was a portent, right? It was a sign of things to come.
Yeah, you can tell he's a weapons man.
Yeah, it was definitely.
The medics have seen a portend.
It only got weird from there.
Yeah. So for just kind of a brief overview, because people might be curious, like, what is a Flintlock? How is it set up?
They still have it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's in North Africa now, but it used to be in Western Europe.
In those days, it was basically the special operations portion of Reforger. It was done separately, but it was part of the whole Reforger system that, the Soviets came through the Fulda Gap, and then they had to deploy forces from the States, and then all this SF units that were assigned to that area would infiltrate behind the Russian lines to screw up their communications and logistics. And it was practice for that, basically.
And you would have actual, like, U.S. Army military personnel or German military personnel acting as the aggressors, the Russians.
No, the whole scenario is played out. That the cops were against you, the Forstmeisters were against you, and everybody was out there trying to find you and stitch you out to somebody.
Well, luckily, the mental asylum
They ran like E&E networks, escape and evasion.
Yeah.
Which we get pilots off the carriers as the pickle. And they put him in somewhere on some deserted beach in Italy. He get picked up by guerrillas and taken to a safe house, and he's moving up to the safe house system that we had set up, which was what you would do in a war.
Right.
You'd have safe houses, transportation cells, all that. I had an entire safe house system that was made up of ex-SS members.
Wow.
Really? They were great. And the pilots we put through there, they all said, hey, we want to go to Nick's area. Yeah. Because half of them were old castles. There was very, very large, what they call a Verein, veterans organization from both from the Wehrmacht and the SS that had property all the way up and down Europe. I could move somebody from the toe of Italy all the way to the Baltic Sea.
Yeah.
And you did this as after military service. You were contracting for the military.
No. You asked how we met. We were still in when we met.
Okay, so you're both still in. Okay, I got you. So this was a detail.
The idea we could do this on our own.
This
Okay.
was school. I look at the Army as a 14 years college.
So
Very interesting skills that I went out and wasted on the civilian market.
Oh, yeah.
and got myself in trouble.
Let me show you how to use that trigraph, baby.
So, you guys depart the military. The or I should say, the security contractor, in air quotes, world was very different. What year was this? And everyone who's a little younger, keep in mind, there's no such thing as Blackwater at the time. There's no such thing as corporate security, really. It's just a very different world that you two had stepped into.
It was 1982.
1982, and there was nothing.
There was
Literally
there was two types of security. Yeah, rent-a-cops.
With Wells Fargo, Wackenhut, those people who just get California plant protection and that. And then there was the creme de la creme, which were all ex-FBI.
Kroll Associates existed, but it was brand
It
new.
was brand new. But they were normally, like corporate security chiefs and that. And the rest of the industry just wasn't there. Nothing was there.
Right. And they, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, in the FBI, like those professionals, they were more focused on sort of more like an investigative type of protective service.
They
right?
were looking for stuff they could lie about.
Damn feds.
Yeah, they're looking for, employees smoking drugs at work or, pilfering from the warehouse and stuff like that.
Or out and out theft. I mean, they were all the big mining companies, oil companies, gas companies, manufacturers like Fordnet, all had a security, the head of the security department, director of security. And invariably, they were usually an ex-speed. And then ASIS came along, and they started doing I forget what they call it, CCPPPP, degree. It's like a master's degree in 7 languages, and they give you a banana and a monkey. But they gradually, those people with those degrees, and there was a lot of guys that had the pedigree that also went and got the degree because that became the rubber stamp.
Mm-hmm.
You got that degree. You got the CPPPPPP. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, right here. I got it this morning.
The first private military contractor was started in Texas in about 1984.
Jeff, we're losing you. Can you center up?
Oh,
Jeff, yeah.
which one do we got to move?
It's amazing. I only have to move an inch in it.
There you go.
Better?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So you were saying the first private military.
The first private military contract that I ever heard of or was aware of was a company called Military Professional Resources Incorporated.
MPRI.
Mm-hmm.
And it was started in Texas in about 1984, 85, I believe. So we'd already been out for like 3 years. And it never really went anywhere. It was started by some retired general. I used to know his name, but we had a good friend that had worked in the White House named Rita Lund, and he actually recruited her to run the administration of that company, but she didn't want to do it. That's how I found out about it. And then DynCorp was formed out of Dynelectron Corporation, and we actually helped them do that without even realizing, we were so naive in those days. They come to one of our training things and said, hey, would you guys like to come down and talk to us about training at our headquarters on the Dolly Madison Parkway in McLean, Virginia? And we said, oh, more than happy. So we went down the boardroom and told them everything we knew.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was a good move.
Yeah.
Probably one of our best.
We were not businessmen, that's for sure.
You guys drive a hard bargain.
Stewart came along with his huge inheritance from his father and became Blackwater.
Somewhere, like the hand signal thing.
Yeah, sorry.
Not signing, making the microphone.
Maybe I need to lean closer to you.
How's that?
It's a good photo, if nothing else.
So yeah, that's that community, that industry grew up. It started in its most nascent form maybe 3 years after we started, and really hit its stride 15 years after we started.
Yeah.
And that's when everybody got really rich. Everybody but us.
We missed that.
And
So you
In that book.
You enter into this world where there's no scaffolding for career progression. You're kind of having to make your own job, find your own work, go out there and really hustle.
We were out there trying to look for situations that we thought we had solutions for, that we could bullshit somebody into paying us for. That was the crux of the business. We knew we could do it,
business plan.
and just go out and go, hey, your grandfather that got kidnapped yesterday. We think we can get him back, and we can get the money back after you collect it from the insurance company.
So is that? Go ahead, Jack.
I was just going to say, so these are the stories that are in your new book, Vagabonds, that's coming out later this month, the 28th or the 31st, somewhere in between there. We discovered today it's available on Kindle right now.
It is available on Kindle right now.
Out on Amazon. If you want to go and check it out, you don't have to wait. So could you start off telling us about some of these stories about how you mentioned the kidnapping for ransom and the rescue missions. How did you guys get wound up in that?
Like everything else in life, we backed into it.
We were doing something else. And I was in the Mexican ones. I was actually training bodyguards down in Mexico while we were together. And then I went looking for an armored car manufacturer that wasn't U.S. because at that time, was it Gerhard Stress or OHS or something? O'Hara.
Oh, yeah, O'Hara something in Eisenhower.
Yeah.
Something.
They were the only provider for armored cars. And there was a couple other places, little shoestring outfits down in Texas and Florida. But they had no such thing as customer service. Once you bought an armored car from them, you were stuck with it. If the windows don't work, any of that happens, you couldn't get it. So I went looking for a Mexican manufacturer that made armored cars, and that started our relationship with our business partner in Mexico, Carlos. And, he's been in the armoring business for 35 years. And from that, I started getting requests from his clients, because who buys armored cars? Rich people. Who gets kidnapped? Rich people. So the first one I did, basically it was a investigation working with the state police, and then we came up with a special technology we could mark the money. It was odorless, colorless, tasteless. Pretty much like our dates up until 35. And, it worked real good. We did a couple of cases down there, got the people back. It's one of the chapters of the book.
Two chapters.
Two of them.
Yeah. And another two chapters is, a lot of these things just happened. We didn't even go looking for them. We had a friend who was a reporter and a writer, wrote a book. He was writing a book on satanic cults. Actually, and it got published and it was on the market. You can find it out there. It's called Other Altars. But we were helping him do some investigations. He was married to a shrink.
A therapist.
Yeah, therapist. Treated some of these women who had been abused by the cults or whatever.
You break in with that.
Anyway, we got ourselves sort of submerged in that for a little while.
Into Satanism?
Like Nick was like, sign me up.
Yeah, well.
Oh, no. Hey, it was pretty straightforward. We were, like this, we had this one that the therapist said that this woman was being picked up by a black van every night by two large Hispanic gentlemen who used to go out and do bad sexual things to her for hours, bring her back to her house. So we listened to these stories, and that's it. Before we agreed to do the job, we go up and stake the place out. We were there all night. Never saw it. We didn't even see an alley cat. And by the time we get back in the morning, it happened last night. There was 4 of them this time.
Yeah.
Same black man. Yeah, okay. Well, she's lonely too. then they come up with this story that there was children being sacrificed.
Yeah.
And Miller went undercover by borrowing a friend of his stroker. Oh man, it was a nice ride. Right. So he's over there as a biker, and I got a beat up pickup truck with a Stetson I bought out of a hand store that came complete with sweat stains.
Nice.
So I'm rednecking it. He's hanging out at the biker bar and that, and they want us to go pick up their contact at the airport. Well, who is the contact? Well, she's 300 pounds, and she won't be hard to find. And Millie goes, why? Well, she has smeared herself with goat excrement to protect herself from Satan. And she had. She was not hard to pick up at all. But things like that where you're looking at it and say, please don't give me any money. I'm embarrassed to take any money.
So did this?
You are so loony. You should use that money to go buy yourself some good drugs.
We need to hear who gave her a ride back from the airport. Did she ride on the back of the motorcycle, or did she ride in?
No.
In the bed of the pickup?
He was in the back with a bale of hay.
Back in the pickup.
With
Yeah.
her luggage.
That's the only way she'd fit. Anyway,
Wouldn't get in the cab with it.
the same guy that got us that fantastic deal calls and says he some private eye that he'd been working with up in Northern California on the Satan stuff knew a family in Minnesota whose daughter's kids were kidnapped and taken out of the country. Do we think we could do anything about it? Well, of course we
We
can.
did one last night.
That's the sort of thing we do all the time. So we wound up, and this is 2 chapters in the book. The first chapter is called Tiny Hostages in the Maghreb, and the second chapter is called Running for Our Lives Across the Rim of Africa.
But-
So it should give you a pretty good idea.
Closer to the truth chapter.
Pretty self-explanatory there. But that started doing a bunch of parental kidnappings, usually by men from the worst countries in the world. We did Iraq, we did Saudi Arabia, we did Guatemala, we did
Sudan.
Mexico, and the first one was Algeria. That's the one that's in the book. We didn't do any of the other stories in this book. Maybe if we do a sequel, we'll put a couple more child kidnapping cases in there.
Maybe during the trial, more details will come.
Yeah.
Could you walk us? Could you walk us through one of those instances? Like, I'm very curious. I think other people will be as well. Like, how do you begin that process of finding the kid first? And then coming up with a plan, you have to, re-kidnap them, I imagine.
That's exactly what we do.
First thing you do is find the money and get your hands on it.
Yeah.
Because when they get their victim back, they get amnesia. So get all the money up front.
Yes.
Did you learn that the hard way?
Cosmo always used to say, Cosmo is a character in the book. That's obviously a pseudonym. You got to get the money while their eyes are still wet. Because otherwise you're never going to get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the process, well, it's never the same twice. I mean, but the story is always the same. And here's the story. Because I got a little bit known for this because I went on the Maury Povich show and I got on the front page of all the Night Ritter newspapers.
But they did dye his hair black so he would be camouflaged.
You can tell where I was. Actually, the guy was red. A reddish brown. Anyway. But anyway, the story I started to hear over and over and over. They're going, are you the guy that can get children back from overseas? Yeah. Well, my husband from pick the shittiest country in the world, we got divorced and he took my son or my daughter or my son and daughter, whatever the case might be, back to his home in Chad or Upper Volta or some goddamn horrible place. And I've spent every penny I ever had on lawyers trying to get my kids back, and none of them have been able to do anything for me. So I was wondering what you might be able to do. To which I would answer, well, if you've spent every penny you ever had, nothing. Because it's not cheap.
Not even a Hardy Hi-Yo silver.
You got to, the cheapest one we ever did was in Mexico, and it was about $37,500, which was super cheap because most of the ones in the Middle East and that were up in the $180,000 to $250,000 range. It's just what it costs.
Right. And those are those just your expenses before you even
We would pay ourselves $2,500 a month while we were doing it. That's all.
Yeah.
And we were not getting
We
rich.
paid all our people really good.
We paid our people good. They mostly got paid by the day because they would usually, after we did all the prep work and all the recon and all that, they would just come in for the actual counter kidnapping things.
We're losing you, Jeff.
I just can't lean for some reason. I just can't lean forward.
It's your beard.
It must be. I'm
Yeah.
talking into my mustache.
So you guys, when you say counter kidnapping, so you obviously had people that you would bring in to help you with this process at some point. How would this work? Would the law enforcement in these countries help you? Would the State Department help you? Were you totally
Oh, yes. They're all very cooperative.
That's what I thought.
You couldn't believe how much cooperation.
That's exactly what I thought.
The State Department won't do anything.
The only thing you can get out of the State Department is the address of the nearest gay bar.
All right. If you're lucky, a mimeograph sheet of local lawyers that you might want to talk to.
These guys here can represent you in court.
And the local police are trying to arrest you.
Usually, though, you're like in Mexico.
Well, Mexico is a little different.
Here's how you do it, guys. Got a problem? Who can help you solve that problem? If you can't trust the police and the local police, who do you go to that can provide you with assets so you can actually plan an operation to recover the victims back to the safety of their loved ones? In the case in Mexico, we were really, really fortunate because the level that I was getting our customers from were the people that bought 15, 20 armored cars a year for a couple $100,000 each for their executives and their families and that. So as the targets of the kidnappings went up, like when we first started, the average kidnapping ransom in Mexico was about 30 grand. That's it. And now it's 30 million. Or, when they took, what was the big banker, they took him down for 40 million. And those cases are very structured. In Mexico, you're going to be kidnapped for about 40 days as a victim. You're going to be kidnapped and they're going to send a certain, dance at the court to the thing. It's, you get a message, we've got your loved one, here's what we want you to do, and give you an idea of the depth of the industry. At that time, there were 2,500 kidnapping gangs just in Mexico City.
Wow.
And the unit that we eventually got lined up with was an outfit that came out of the state of Mexico, which is Texcoco, up on the edge of the lake where the old dry lake is. And they were appointed by the governor. The head of that outfit was a former cardiac surgeon, actually. And they were really good, really good. In cases like, Chechnya or in Algeria or someplace like that, you've got to find the people that can help you achieve what you need to get done. And they can cover your ass at the same time.
Right.
So you might have pickings from both.
And sometimes it's the underworld.
Most of the time.
More often than not.
For some guys, we missed you, Jeff. For some guys, it's what?
The underworld.
Yeah, the underworld.
The mob, the gangster community.
The Corsican mob.
Yeah.
The
Right.
union courts.
Yeah.
Well,
By the way, never went back on their word, delivered on time, and didn't bitch about anything.
I imagine that in some, like you said, it really differs country by country, because in a lot of Islamic countries, the father has the rights to the child in their view. So
100%.
yeah, so you're not going to get any help from the government, because in their view, he's 100% within his right to do what he did.
You're the kidnapper. Well, in the book, there's a little phone call I got from the State Department at the beginning of the chapter, Tiny Hostages in the Maghreb. They actually called me on the phone, and it was one of the most interesting telephone calls I've ever had in my life, because I'm just hanging around and the phone on the kitchen wall rings. Remember when we used to have phones on the kitchen wall? That's how long ago this was. And this voice says, "Is this Jeffrey Miller?" You know, this like professional radio timbre baritone. And I said, "Yeah. Have you been to Algeria recently?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, apparently you know I have, or you wouldn't be calling." He's like, "Well, Mr. Miller, are you aware that the Algerians are very upset, and they have issued a warrant for your arrest for kidnapping and forwarded to Interpol and issued a red notice?" And I said, "Oh, really? Well, what does that mean?" And he's like, "Well, it means you're going to have to be very careful with your international travel. Don't go anywhere that we can't protect you." And I said, "I didn't really think there was anywhere I could go that you would protect me." And the guy said,
Better luck at the Ukrainian embassy.
"You need to take this seriously, Mr. Miller." And then here's what he said. He said, "There may be some people here who would applaud what you did. There may be some people here who would think what you did was heroic. But officially, the U.S. State Department deplores these kinds of activities by private citizens. So just watch your step." And I said, "Well, okay, I'll watch my step." And then I went to Guatemala and did another one.
So what happened with the Interpol thing? Because obviously, I mean, that's a huge thing.
Nick knew a guy.
I didn't take care of anything. I was on meds. In fact, I may have had a relapse of malaria and dengue fever.
It just somehow wasn't in the file in Switzerland.
It wasn't a necessity for it to stick around. You know, save a tree, visit the paperwork.
The paperwork got lost in transit.
Yes, it got lost somewhere.
Yeah.
It was 2 years later. That thing hung over my head for 2 years.
So for your first, because Nick, you were used to, you were working out of Det A, so you were used to doing everything in a very clandestine manner and whatnot. When you went into Algeria, did you guys try to figure out, well, should we go in true name? Should we fly right into Algeria? Should we cross the border from Morocco? Like, how do we do this?
We were trying to get two young guys to do it instead of us. That was a perfect cover. We'll be in Palma, Mallorca, and this is our cell phone, our satellite phone number. Call us.
And how'd that work out?
We went in under our own names.
And remember, you got cover for action and cover for purpose. Principle that you should not forget.
We were archaeologists. We were looking at Carthaginian ruins. So we went to Tunisia, and then we went to Algeria, and we had fully backstopped university credentials as archaeologists.
And I can speak archaeology.
That's amazing.
Especially Roman, Afroceptus.
And it's not so easy. What people don't realize when they come out of the service is how dependent you are on Uncle Sam's monstrous logistics capability.
Right. Yeah.
When you have to get everything yourself, and it costs a lot of money. We blew $50,000 on a ship that we never wound up getting to use on the Algeria thing. And they wouldn't give us our money back, and the guy hanged himself.
Well, the guys from Corsica were involved. It was an honor thing. And the ship burned to the water line and unfortunately hung himself in Greece.
Jesus Christ.
It's in the book.
For the people who aren't familiar with some of the vocabulary. When they say that their credentials were fully backstopped, that means that somebody could call the university. They could look. Well, they didn't have websites at the time, but they could call the university. They could do research, and yeah, these guys are legitimately tied.
When you paper yourself, you're papering yourself for action.
Yeah.
What are the chances somebody's going to call? If they call, what kind of questions are they going to have, and who needs to answer that phone?
So it helps a lot when the
Dean of that particular institution was in MACV-SOG.
Everything. Hey, I noticed something. My head is looking kind of odd shaped, and I know it's not that way because it's round, but it's kind of like flat on one side. Is that the lighting?
Oh, your head's flat on one side.
I don't know.
You think so? It's a little asymmetric.
It looks pretty symmetric to me, but not as symmetric as mine.
It looks okay.
But it's close.
Look at his little face.
You're beautiful, Nick. Don't worry.
Yeah, sure.
So you guys decided to fly in true name into country. Did you already know the location? Like, did the wife know where the ex-husband took them?
For a kid case, the standard is, in those days, and remember, this was a long time ago when money was worth way more than it's worth now. Back in the 1980s and early 90s, $25,000 flat fee for a recon. And it's non-refundable. And we come back and we'll tell you if we can do it, how we can do it, and how much it will cost. And if you don't want to pay, first off, if we say it can't be done, we've never said that, but it certainly could happen. And then we say, this is how much it's going to cost, and if you think that's more than you can afford.
There was one we turned down. Remember the Lebanese guy?
You said it Lebanese?
It was somebody they wanted to get out of the predicament he was in, and it wasn't a good situation.
Oh, that wasn't a kid, though.
Yeah.
But because what people don't understand is, until you've been on the ground and seen what the exact situation is, there's no way you can come up with a number.
No.
You have no idea what assets you're going to require, what kind of personnel you're going to have to hire. And it's very expensive. You tell people, if you're running from the police in a country and you sneak across an international border with forged paperwork, you're going to go to the airport and a couple of little kids in tow that you didn't have when you arrived. You're going to go to the airport and you're going to pay cash for the first ticket on the first plane going anywhere.
Right.
And I don't care how much it costs. And now it's like these people are like, well, can't you book in advance and get the super saver? No,
We do that all the time, especially going in.
Going in, yeah, but not coming out.
Yeah.
I got to ask Jeff, like, how do you, as going into a country like that, get the kid back? And you also, I mean, they've never seen you before. I mean, how do you
We
even?
took their mother with us.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Oh,
The
yeah.
mother was right there in the alley in the car.
Take the mother with you, always.
In fact, that started the shitstorm was because some Arabs started sitting in the back of the car without a mail with her and started giving her a ration of crap.
Yeah.
Then the ninja leaped off the wall, right there. Leaped off the wall with this Russian shock baton. It looks like a billy club from the turn of the century. It's electric, shoots lightning bolts out of the side of it when you turn it on and cackle. Jumps down, lands on the hood of the car, and when he did, he turned it on and he hit his right leg. And then paralyzed his right leg.
Wait, Jeff, Jeff, you're breaking up, but Jeff, you hit your own right leg with your shock baton.
Oh yeah.
Basically
Paralyzed.
with a cattle prod.
It was like Chester on Gunsmoke.
I was trying to chase these three Arabs down the street.
Well,
and I'm dragging my right leg behind me.
wait, the master isn't up yet. Come back.
Yeah, well,
It never runs like you see it.
no.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true.
The two guys that were supposed to subdue the husband were so excited they jammed the hypodermic in his buttocks and broke it off.
Jesus.
So only half a dosage. So he managed to stumble out of the house and down the street to the police toolbox where they were hiding because they heard all this racket.
Well, there was a revolution going on at the time. Yeah. So the gendarmerie are barricaded in their little thing, and he's pounding on their door, and he's slurring his words real bad because he got half the dose of PCP or whatever it is because the needle broke out. He's like, giant ninjas stole my children, come out. And they're like, get away from here or we'll shoot through the door. It gave us an extra 8 hours head start.
What the fuck?
So during your operational planning, the idea came up that whomever you were working with, whomever you guys had hired, had access to some sort of drug that they were and needles, and they were going to jab this guy, sedate him, so that you could nab the kids and get out, and he'd be out.
Actually, it never really came up in the operational planning. The guy was a special forces captain and came up with that completely on his own. I didn't know he was going to do it until the needle came out.
I got some nuclear. We'll give him an enema.
I got this from my cousin, EMT in New Orleans. It's good stuff. Hey, whatever.
What? Nick, we can't hear you. What did you say?
I said it's like getting a gamma globulin shot.
Yeah.
It's like a tennis ball underneath your skin.
Yeah.
On the ones that we did in the Middle East, in Chechnya, we actually used a friendly isotope. That's how we tracked it. It was different than the ones in Mexico, because usually the client was a member of the family and the family's paying for it. And you have to follow very strict rules, because under the Mexican criminal code, if you're involved in the recovery of a kidnap victim and you're not working with the police, you can be arrested as a co-conspirator.
Wow.
And a defendant as one of the kidnapping gangs. And the one in Chechnya was totally different. It was a rich industrialist. And we actually used a friendly isotope that we got from the Russians. He had a heart medicine that he had to take. And the only place to get it was in 2 pharmaceutical outlets within, 100 miles. And so they broke in and dosed all the medicine that was there. And eventually he got some of it. And then they used, just like nuclear emergency search teams, in a helicopter, they got a detector, they just flew over the area until they got a hot spot.
Holy shit.
Wow.
And that's how we found it.
Who had the helicopter
Yeah.
in Chechnya? Who did you guys if you don't mind talking about it, who did you?
We rented it. We also rented a whole bunch of burleys to go in and make the raid.
Was this in Grozny?
It was in the mountains west of there.
Okay.
The guy tried to do an oil deal with the Chechens. And of course, the Chechens, when Stalin captured the place, he took every rat, man, woman, child, dog, cow, and everything, put them on trains and shipped them to Siberia until the train ended, and then gave them shovels and told them, get busy. And between that time, and I think it was 1934, and the collapse after World War II, the Chechens came back and settled back in their own country. They're strange, and their entire history is of brigandy. All the way back to the Tsars. The Tsars used to send the Cossacks in there every once in a while to clean the place up. So it's but the guy thought he could do business with these people, and he ended up suffering for it for 18 months.
Wow.
So you dosed his heart medication, found him using a isotope that wouldn't kill him with a nuclear search team, and then you hired a bunch of thugs to go in there and pull him out of there. Is what
Not
you're
exactly thugs. They were members of the military.
You hired the Russian military to go and do a raid on this guy.
They were a private security company that came with equipment that looked amazingly like Russian military.
Right.
There's a technical aspect here that my lawyers say I have to bring up in the conversation.
They may have been military, but if they were, they had a part-time job. I mean, who doesn't?
They were
right?
moonlighting.
Yeah, well, you know, the guy, they paid $30 million for this guy.
Wow.
God damn.
We had another trick on the other end, which helped immensely. That everybody that touched the ransom money, by 36 hours later, they were with their makers.
Wow.
That was the Russians' idea. I mean, they're very clever people and very creative.
Yeah.
That sounds like that's a GRU tactic, I believe, that they would even like deliver letters to Chechen rebels. They'd open up the letter and then the rebel leader's dead 24 hours later. I mean, I've read.
Bulgarians are famous for that.
Yeah.
I mean, the famous,
Rice
umbrella gun, the shot pellet in the guy's leg and that. Ricin.
yeah.
Right.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I used to kill trout with it. Roanoke. Big Roanoke, throw it in the water, kills all the fish, stuns them. Just go down and pick them up like it's nice to be in the daisies.
And
Until
then,
the game warden sees you.
and then how did they taste afterwards?
Well, these fish are stunned. I'm bringing them to shore to give them artificial respiration.
Holy shit.
So when you guys would go into a country was part of your recon that
You don't
25?
take guns into a country.
No guns.
No,
No guns.
yeah,
Very, very, very rarely. And if you are going to have one, you get it there. You can't be running around.
Get it there and get rid of it if you have
Yeah.
to use it.
but when
Here's what people don't understand.
yeah,
Homicide will follow you for the rest of your life. And I don't care. And nobody will feel good about hiding you from it.
right,
So we go and I've gotten backlash from other SF guys too. Like go back to Algeria, right? We took the mother with us. We were helping her get her kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's all, Your Honor. If there's a dead cop involved in this scenario, that ain't gonna work.
right,
So now you're looking, instead of maybe a good international lawyer getting you out of the Huskow in 6 months to a year, to never coming home.
right.
And it's a big difference. That's one thing Hollywood, people just kill people with impunity in all these movies and leave the body like nobody's ever had noticed it was there,
Right.
It doesn't work that way. Not at all.
So when you guys would go into a country, did you generally have, because of your previous work, have contacts in that country or know somebody who might know somebody? Or were there times when you got on the ground and sort of had to develop your own contacts, find the underworld if that's what it took?
Yes.
Yeah, both. I mean, obviously, you're better off to have contacts.
Right.
Sometimes they're quite limiting. You still got to do a lot of stuff on your own. Sometimes you don't have anything.
Or like how you met, what was Cut Thumb, the guy who
The Finger Joe,
Cut Finger Joe, looked just like
Paul Newman,
Paul Newman.
Yeah.
Blue eyes.
from the Union Course.
Yeah.
Allegedly, the mastermind of both the most profitable kidnapping and the largest bank robbery in the history of the world.
Really?
Nice guy.
That's a really helpful tip. Like if you cut the finger off for identification, don't send it by regular mail.
Why?
Send it because 28 days later, when they get the rotting tissue to them, you can't get a print off it.
Right.
That's good practical advice, Nick.
Yeah.
That's news you can use,
That we thought so.
So use FedEx or UPS or
DHL. DHL.
not the
yeah.
postal system.
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
DHL. Yeah.
Gents, I want to ask you about Africa, Bosnia, Mexico. Just real quick plug first for the people who are out there watching us tonight. Make sure that you pick up Nick and Jeff's new book, Vagabonds. That's what we're here discussing right now. It's all the adventures and misadventures that they had after their military service. You can get it on Kindle right now. The hardback book will be out later this month. I also want to remind you guys about Jeff Miller's whiskey company, Toxic Masculinity. Go ahead, show off a bottle there, Jeff. There you go. Raise it up a little bit. There you go. Perfect. I ordered 2 bottles that got shipped out today. It's for our episode 100 party, so we'll be drinking some toxic masculinity ourselves. And I want to remind people to go check out our Instagram page for the Team House. I want to remind you guys to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Take a look down in the Patreon link down in the description if you want to support the channel. And I also want to let everyone know that another endeavor I have going called Civ Group, CIVGRP.com, if you want to check it out. We're doing weekend classes and a training exercise. It's sort of a fantasy camp if you ever wondered what it would be like to be a spy or a commando. So check that out. We got a class going in June.
And also, in addition to their book, which you can get on Kindle right now, and it'll be released in the paperback or hardback sometime in the near future. I think you can pre-order it on Amazon, which is called Vagabonds. You can also check out Nick's other 2 books, Whispers in Tall Grass and We Few. Both of them are great books about his time in MACV-SOG and in Vietnam. Was there any point, Jeff, when, so you went from sort of a training company in a way, and then evolved into people asking you to, first you went through the whole satanic craze, which the 80s, everything was about Satanism. There were all the news stories about, satanic kidnapping.
Dungeons and Dragons is making my kid worship Satan.
Right. Yeah. All the talk shows. And I mean, I played Dungeons and Dragons, which was directly related to Satanism, according to everybody. But then you guys actually got into legit kidnapping, which in the United States, a lot of times is, fathers or taking their children back home. Was there a time when it was, initially, was it surreal at all? Like, are we really doing this? Like, are we going to infiltrate into Algeria and find a way to grab these kids and bring them back home?
I don't know if surreal would be. There's a couple of things that happened that were kind of surreal, but not generally. No, it's because you're so focused on mission accomplishment.
Right.
You got to be really focused. And I've had guys that we hired break down and just not be able to handle that sort of thing, which I found amazing because some of them came with good resumes. Is this yours or mine? But yeah, I always, it's funny because every mission I ever went on, I almost knew from the beginning whether it was going to be good or not. You know what I mean? And I don't know why. It was just like, I'm bulletproof on this one. I'm on a mission from God. Nothing can stop me,
Yeah.
And then another one would be like, no, man, this just doesn't feel right. I'm not sure this is going to work. Although our success ratio on kidnappings was probably 90% or better.
Which is incredible.
We had one really spectacular failure that I'm saving for the next book because it was really interesting. There was a lot of really strange players in it. I'll give you one little tiny.
Sure.
We were at the mother's house in Florida, great big mansion right on a canal in the, down the street from the Trumps or something. Very, very wealthy family. Very wealthy family. So we're there and we're talking to her about what's going on, and her kids have been taken down to Latin America, and her husband is a billionaire and he flies around on his own jet and everything. So it's complicated from the very beginning.
Right.
Yeah. So we meet this old guy is there at her kitchen table, right? Really nice old, balding, tall, but kind of stooped over, very old worldy, like manners, And his name's Ira, and he's down from New York. So we say to Ira, what brings you here, Ira? And he goes, well, I'm her accountant, the mother's accountant, right? And we're like, oh, so you're a CPA? He goes, I have a very limited practice. I I do this as a favor because she's a relative of mine, but I only have one family in New York that I work for and do all the accounting for. Well, it's like a really wealthy family. He goes, well, it's the Gambino family.
Oh, jeez.
Those are pretty good conventions.
Yeah.
Hey, all right.
I'm surprised at having a relative that worked for the Gambino family that she didn't have other resources to help her with her kidnapping issue.
Oh, come on.
No,
The Italians are smart enough not to touch anything like that.
her ex-husband had all the same resources and a lot more.
Right. Was there a common sort of economic status amongst these men that would take their children back to their home country, or did it vary?
There was a common economic status among the ones that could afford to hire us. But we heard all kinds of sob stories from people, and sometimes you get lucky. Like we had this one, there was actually a Mexican mother, and she married a Kurd from Erbil, which was an exciting one. Although we never wound up having to do any of the heavy lifting on that because I shanghaied Dewey into doing it for us. He had all the right connections. So all we wound up doing was going to the Turkey-Iraq border and waiting for the kid to be delivered. But she only had the opportunity to do it because after this all happened, she wound up marrying her divorce lawyer. And he financed it. The Algerian, the family owned an advertising agency. So they had some money to do it. And obviously when down in Latin America, they were, God knows how filthy rich they were.
One owned the paper company, one owned.
But then you hear all these stories from a woman that's a waitress at a Moroccan restaurant. Boyfriend, live-in, baby daddy's got the kid in Spain.
We're losing.
She makes $8 an hour. And there's just no way. You feel bad.
Right.
I would love to have been there were a few years there when I would love to have been a charity that I could have just taken these cases and gone and done them. But we heard a lot of sob stories that we had absolutely no way that we could help because there was just no resources whatsoever.
Yeah,
Jeff.
they didn't have Indiegogo at the time where they could, get the resources to crowdfund it, and but yeah. So, I mean, that must have been hard, or maybe it wasn't. But was it hard for you guys on some level at times to listen to these stories? And if they didn't have the resources, I mean, you guys can't do this out of your pocket. So if they didn't have the resources, was it tough to listen to their story and not be able to do anything?
I've been married 3 times. I've listened to every sob story you can possibly imagine. Had no effect on me.
You just can't.
Right.
It would drive you crazy.
Right.
Because there's just no way. I mean, we weren't making a lot of money at that.
Right.
But we couldn't do it for free either.
Right.
Yeah.
The Algerian one Tony cost the family $185,000.
Right.
And if you don't have that, what are you going to do? There's plane tickets to buy, there's cars to rent, there's boats to rent, there's people to pay, there's hotel rooms. There
are Corsican mob guys to.
There's Corsican. Actually, they never really asked for any money.
Really?
They were very. There's a guy in the book. He's called Carlos. That's obviously not his real name, but he was one of the greatest guys that we ever met. From Marseille, great, big, hulking, kind of crazy dude.
He looks like that guy that used to be on all the spaghetti westerns.
Yeah, the name
Bud something.
Bud Spencer.
Bud
Spencer.
Looked like Bud Spencer. And he had his curly racined hair, and his cousins, when he was a young boy, used to use him as a sex toy.
Jesus.
He told.
Very well connected.
Was he?
Female cousin.
Oh, his female cousin.
He got his start in life setting fire to boats at anchor in Marseille Harbor, and then running out with his private fireboat and putting the fire out and claiming salvage.
Good work if you can get it.
Guys,
Yeah, and he was great. He also owned a spy shop called CIA KGB Limited. Sold, listening devices and little cameras, and
Gets stopped on the other side of the Algerian airport because and this is what he's wearing a pair of cowboy boots that are like lawyer's skin or something. The lizard, some kind of special skin in that. Black pants, black shirt, aluminum colored tie, and sports jacket. And he comes out and he goes, "Why did they always pick me up?"
And then he tells the customs guy,
and he deals in electronics.
Right.
And the customs guy opens his briefcase, and it's completely full of brochures of machine guns.
Artillery
And
pieces.
the custom guy's looking at this monster in his silver lame sport coat. And he's like, electronics? And Carlos is like, well, they have electronic parts,
That's the best part of doing it, is the people.
The people you meet. It's amazing. We've met some just absolutely unbelievable people around the world.
can you guys tell us about Bosnia?
Yeah, well, that was my bright idea. I dragged him into it. I was watching television, and they were showing the market in downtown Sarajevo getting mortared back in about 1995, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time putting the timeline of notes because so many things happen.
We're losing you. We're losing you, Jeff.
So
That's because he's mumbling.
that was mostly because I was mumbling. But anyway, I'm watching it and I'm thinking to myself, this doesn't look like that hard of a problem to solve. Why don't they just get some commando teams to go up in those hills and, dispatch some of those mortar teams? It wouldn't be that difficult. So I knew this very wealthy Saudi who I'd gotten to know when I was at Desert Storm, and I'd actually helped him bring a quad 12.7 Russian anti-aircraft gun back to Riyadh and put it on the roof of his house.
Why not?
Yeah. So
Man room.
we
Yeah.
got in touch with him, and I got in touch with this Korean guy who was always good to put the arm on for a few bucks, And I got $25,000 and an agreement from the Saudi to introduce me to all the right people. So we wound up going over to Riyadh. And the guy's father, the guy that I knew's father, was somewhat of an Islamic scholar, whatever they, a Quranic memorizer, whatever it is. And he knew a Quranic scholar who was over in Jeddah, who was from Sarajevo, from the Bosnian Muslim community.
Mm-hmm.
So we hopped over to Jeddah and we met with him, and he loved the idea. So he took us to Istanbul. So we get to Istanbul and we go into this dodgy neighborhood right out of a movie, the Kasbah. You kept expecting Pepe La Mocha to step out of the doorway. And we wandered through these little streets, and we go into this building and out onto this balcony, and this doctor is there, heavy-set Sudanese doctor, who was apparently the best friend of President Izetbegovic of Bosnia, and is coordinating all the logistics, most of which are coming from Iran at that point.
Oh, yeah.
So this Bosnian Islamic scholar from Saudi Arabia takes us out there and introduces us. And I know this doctor was looking at him going, "You stupid little twerp."
one of these grilled ones.
Drag these freaking CIA agents in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like,
It was a CIA.
you work for the CIA. Right. No, we don't. No way.
No,
They don't even like us. We believe that you work for them. Well, we don't. Well, we think you do. Well, we don't. Well, we think you do. So this goes on for a while. So they said, you're going to go have to wait, and we're going to have to discuss this with the Ministry of Defense in Bosnia and decide whether we're going to let you go there. So we spent 8 days in Istanbul just screwing around. They got this bar there. I don't know if it's still there, but it was right at where the international bridge went across on the European side, called the Zuni Bar. And the Zuni Bar was like being at a Victoria's Secret's after party every night. It was unbelievable. So we're going to the Topkapi Museum, and we're going down to the big underground souk and buying spices. And, we're enjoying it pretty much. And these Turkish intelligence people come and question us, well, what is your religion? Kind of Christian, I guess. Not really very much.
Reformed Druid.
Why do you want to help? Well, it just seemed like a good thing to do. We saw these women and children getting killed by mortar rounds, and we thought, hey, let's go do something about that. So finally, after 8 days, they tell us we can go. So we flew from Istanbul to Marseille.
Wait, one other incident. Miller offered to get a letter from the CIA saying that we didn't work for them. So if we get a letter from the CIA that says we don't work for them, we accept that. That kind of threw him in this. They went over in a corner and butted heads together. Oh, what do you think?
Well, we flew to Marseille, we got on a train, and we went to Venice. We got off in Venice, and we had a big, fancy lobster dinner, figuring like we were the condemned men. And then we got on the train in Venice, and we went to Trieste, and then we went through Slovenia at night. These giant Slovenian female. Let me tell you, from what I saw, Melania Trump is not representative of the female Slovenian population in any way.
Unless she was 1/3 of
So, and then we
had
get
the
on
most amazing coffee.
Yeah.
The most amazing
we get on
coffee.
another bus, and we go to some little outpost outside Sarajevo with a bunch of drunk teenagers with AK-47s wandering around, coming back off leave or whatever they were doing. And then we rented a Volkswagen Jetta with a driver to drive us over the dirt roads because all the major highways were cut by the Serbs. So we had to drive up in the mountains on dirt roads and down the other side. And we get this, just as we're leaving, this Bosnian psychiatrist who was attending a medical conference in Paris shows up and gets in the car with us. And which was great because he spoke.
This is one of those.
And which was great because he spoke.
This is one of those poor tens you were talking about.
Yeah.
And we went up over the mountains, and we got in the middle of the night to the wrong side of Sarajevo, and he dropped us off with a taxi driver who took us to the underground tunnel that went under the airport into Sarajevo, but they wouldn't let us go through because we didn't have a stamp from the chief of police. So we had a cab driver took us home and made up a spare room in his house, and we slept there that night. And
We spooned.
the next day we got into Sarajevo.
It was cold.
And we met the deputy minister of defense, and we went to the Hotel Bosnia, and we got drunk with Jackie Szymanski from CNN and a bunch of Norwegian air traffic control. And it was, it goes on from there.
How did you get like the introductions to the Secretary of Defense or the like? Did you just basically show up and go, hey, this is who we are and this is what we're doing?
Yeah, and this is how much money we can provide. That's what opens the door.
Right.
Yeah, we have a commitment for $2 million from Saudis and people from the United Arab Emirates to put together this commando school for you guys to teach you how to deal with these mortar problems. And the $2 billion is what opens the door.
Sure.
And the connection.
Yeah.
And the what?
Connection. The guy that brings you in.
Yeah.
Who is he? What kind of juice does he have in the country?
Right.
Yeah, we'd already been, obviously, they'd already contacted him about us when we were loafing around Istanbul.
I think it was the letter that we were going to get from the CIA saying we didn't work.
Did you get that letter or no? Did they not require that
No,
letter?
they weren't interested
They
in that.
didn't want.
They didn't want it?
They kind of looked at us like, oh, yeah, okay.
I think they suspected it might be a forgery.
Really, a letter from the CIA saying you don't work for them that would be completely
Do it
legit.
back in the hotel room in about 20 minutes.
Right.
Got the rubber stamps and the wax.
Right.
And, secret ring. We're in.
You mentioned like the State Department, you mentioned the CIA, things like that. During your travels, did these agencies ever approach you to A, figure out what you were doing, B, tell you not to do it, C, try to provide support, anything like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
And like Forrest Gump,
Well-
that's about all I have to say about that.
Fair enough.
Look at the fine.
Yeah, fair enough. That's easy enough.
Generally, it wasn't to give us support.
No, and it wasn't to give us a fucking
That was-
job opportunity.
By far, just a third on that list that you read off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're about to step on some toes here you don't want to step on.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we went to China to get the guy out of China. We got
Jeff.
some-
When we went to get the guy out of China, we got some advanced briefings from some Americans.
So you got a guy out of China.
Do and what not to do.
So before we get to China, because now we want to hear this, what happened? Did you guys set up the commando course? Did that go down?
I don't know. What? Excuse me?
I said before we get to China, because we definitely want to hear about that. How did the whole commando course, how did that resolve? Did you guys?
It dissipated.
We got on the elevator to go up to see the Minister of Defense.
I remember this guy.
And there's a guy on the elevator, and we're looking at him, and this guy looks really familiar. I've seen him somewhere before, but couldn't make the connection. So after we got off, he made a left and went into Ali Izabegovich's office. And we made a right to go down to the Minister of Defense. And we were talking to him, and we're like, who is that? That guy looks so familiar. Who is he? Well, who he was Clinton's envoy. I can't think of his name right now.
I thought it was Hal Holbrook, but it's something like that.
Well, I think it was Holbrook.
Yeah.
Something Holbrook.
Yeah, he was the governor
Anyway.
of Mexico. New Mexico.
And the next thing, everybody's all excited. We're all flying off to Dayton, Ohio to sign some kind of a peace agreement. And we're like, well, that sucks.
Filthy lying bastard.
Peace isn't going to do us any good.
Nobody makes
Nope.
money. Yeah, when there's a peace
We
treaty.
wound up just going home.
Fucked up a perfectly good war, Jeff.
Yeah.
They did.
Well, it's always good if you can get paid to do this kind of work, and then it falls apart. Then you don't feel bad.
Right.
It's when you take it on a fling and you spend some money of your own, and it turns bad. That's when you look back on yourself and go, "Did I shave you this morning? Why didn't I cut your throat?"
I shaved my balls for this.
We just went home, and the whole thing.
So what's the story on grabbing a guy up out of China? That's pretty wild.
The guy in China was. This is something I didn't know at the time, and I don't think many people know. If you are sued by a Chinese company and you are in China, you cannot leave until that suit is settled. Period. They won't give you an exit visa.
You can still you keep your passport.
Keep your passport. You can
And
travel
you're free
around
to go
inside
anywhere in China.
But you can't leave.
You try and leave.
So this guy got sued. He was a manufacturer. He was building stuff in China. He got sued for $150,000, and he wouldn't pay. And he went to China because he was in the States, and he went to China to settle the suit. So he went to court and everything, and he lost because he wasn't Chinese, obviously. And he wound up paying the $150,000, and then he was going to go to the airport and go home. Well, the guy that had just gotten his $150,000, went in and filed a lawsuit for $500,000. And when he got to the airport, they said, sorry, you can't go. So his accountant actually approached me. And because at one time in the distant smoky past, she'd been my accountant. She said, you still do the kind of
really?
Yeah. You still do the kind of stuff you used to do? And I said, well, if the money's right, whatever. And she said, well, here's what happened. One of my clients is in China. They won't let him leave. And I'd like you to talk to his wife. So I went and talked to his wife, and there we go on another one. These things just happen that way.
They evolve.
They evolve.
Usually without a portent.
Yeah.
Without one?
Without a portent.
But you had your major like portent though the way you met. So I think anything along the way would just be minor.
Yeah, well,
You can tell he's a weapons.
yeah, it's really strange that two people with such similarly unconventional outlooks on life wind up meeting each other, I suppose.
Yeah,
Finding friends that are as twisted as you,
Yeah.
priceless.
Yeah.
and I mean honestly I would be, you never know what would happen, but would you guys have had you not met and sort of came up with this idea to start training these companies, would you have embarked on these types of things solo? If you hadn't had each other, would you had such an adventure filled life? Maybe.
Well, neither one of us are a Marchenko or an Eric Prince. I mean, I don't want to be in the news being the mercenary free captain of the only private military company in the world.
You don't want to be on the cover of Soldier of Fortune, Nick?
No, and I really don't want all this. In fact, this is too much advertisement out on the open wire.
Well, but we're old now.
A life sentence is no longer that.
Right.
I never would have done this 25 years ago.
Right.
25 years ago, we've been all over you.
Yeah.
Been doing those manly looking pictures of guys with guns.
Yeah.
And the sit-down leather bikini in it.
Yeah.
Look at this baby.
It's
Alpha male.
in the real world out there, maybe twice we were wearing BDUs and carrying automatic weapons.
3 times.
3 times. Okay. Over a period of 40 years.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the stuff is done up here. You gotta outthink the opposition.
Yeah, you're a problem solver.
You're not going to defeat them in open combat. It
Right.
just doesn't work that way. Life is not a
Unless you're with somebody that has that authority to actually engage.
Yeah.
Like the Mexican State Police or the 2nd Battalion of the 486th Infantry for Nigeria or something like that.
Right.
It depends on. You're not going to be pulled out of it. You have a piece for your own personal protection. Great. I mean, I don't go into a country where I'm in a dangerous situation where I don't make arrangement for somebody to have extra guns on them in case I need them.
Right. But
Like we did the kidnapping thing in Mexico. The state policeman brought along 4 extra guns. 2
Right.
submachine guns.
But a lot of times that's for your own personal protection in these sort of wildlands or whatever, more than for actions on the objective. Like we're doing a direct action assault and we're gonna lay down some scunion and smoke some dudes.
We had a client, the Algerian
father had a picture of in his mind of the Rat Patrol.
Yeah.
Thinking that we were going to come driving out of the desert into this little town on jeeps with 50 caliber
Which I
machine
actually voted for. I knew where to get the equipment out of Egypt.
No.
So
There's not going to be any 50 caliber machine
What
guns.
you want to do is get the opposition force, invite them, unbeknownst to them, to a restaurant, give them a big feed, and douse everything with IZ.
yeah.
You won't have to worry about the food.
Nick, can you kind of back up and or center up and repeat that? You said what you want to do is get the opposition force in a restaurant.
And then, pay for their meal, give them a banquet, but douse everything with Visine.
Right. Which I've heard they changed the formula of Visine, and that doesn't work anymore.
Oh,
Well, really.
well,
Yeah.
I'll get some potassium perchlorate.
I just
And do the same thing, except it'll turn your piss orange.
I just wanted to say that for anybody in the
Otherwise,
audience. Yeah.
My meds are wearing off.
So how did you get the guy out of China though?
Fishing boat to the Matsu
Islands, and then on an airplane to Taiwan. And then because he went to the embassy and told him he needed a new passport, and the U.S. State Department squealed on him to the Taiwanese authorities, we had to smuggle him a third time to the Philippines.
That he was an illegal immigrant.
Yeah,
Now,
illegal.
that isn't ironic or some sort of
Jeff,
sort of weird celestial bullshit there.
Jeff, I'm so sorry to do this to you, but we lost you a little bit during that. But so
Okay.
when you got him out, like, so was he under surveillance while he was in the country?
I didn't seem to be.
He what?
I'm sure he wasn't because we had what we did wouldn't work.
We still don't have
We
you.
took him to a little fishing village near the town of Fuju, and we got him on a fishing boat, which was a whole thing because we arranged it once and it fell through, and then we had to start over. Got him. We'd set up a safe house on one of the Matsu Islands, and got him over there to the safe house, and then we just flew him commercial back to the main island of Taiwan, where he went to the U.S. Embassy, and the State Department turned him into the cops for being an illegal alien. That's how helpful the U.S. State Department is. And then we got him on a medical flight, wrapped him in bandages, and told him to play dead, and got him on a medical flight to Manila.
To Manila?
And then from there back to Los Angeles.
It's amazing because he went to the embassy and all he needed was travel documents because he did not have an exit visa from China.
Right.
Okay. So he went to the embassy and the embassy, woof, this. You came in illegally, woof. We used some other networking and that went to the Nigerian embassy. Not only were the Nigerians willing to give him travel papers, they were willing to give him a passport and swear that he was one of their relatives.
That's amazing.
For a nominal fee.
Right.
For less than what we had to spend on getting him away from the airport.
There's always a market for those kind of documents. And it changes constantly. It's very fluid. I have no idea what it is today because I'm not paying much attention anymore.
Yeah.
Pretty sure
But there was a time back in
late 1990s, early 2000s, that the daughter of the president of Mozambique was selling passports, like tickets to a Lakers game. You could just go, everybody could become a Mozambican if you wanted to, and it wasn't even very expensive. So there's always this sort of black market going on. You just have to figure out where it is and whether the passport in question would really be a realistic fit with the person and all that.
You want an exit stamp on your or an entrance stamp on your passport.
Right.
You came in by cab over the mountains, so you didn't pass through the toll. So you go find the nearest American tourist, buy him some drinks, have a good time, slip his passport out, order a hot hard-boiled egg, peel it, take the hard-boiled egg, roll it onto his stamp, and then go over and roll it right back onto yours. Unless they're really looking at it, it's all the way down to the right color ink, the signature, the little initial they put in the center, all that. I mean, it's a simple trick, something like that. Or you got to get a full paper. How do I get, a passport? Well, there's certain circles you have to travel. Most of them are Democrats, by the way.
And if you have a little time in advance, and we often did, we had a studio in Laguna Beach, California that could make any visa.
Famous rubber stamp that went down the toilet.
Yeah, yes. When the first time I went to China, I had a Chinese visa stamp in my left shoe and a Taiwanese visa stamp in my right shoe. And let me tell you, when you're standing in line for customs, one side of your brain is going, oh, well, there's no chance they're going to strip search me. I mean, nobody's going to find something that's inside my sock, inside my shoe, under my foot. But what if they do?
Yeah.
And your brain is telling you.
That's when you become Penguini.
That's when you discover if you've got any nuts or not.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Because your mind is just telling you, once you're having a fight in your own mind. One side is trying to be logical. There's 35 people in this line getting off the ferry from Kinman Island. What are the odds that they're going to want to strip search me?
Right.
Yeah, but what if they do?
Right. Right.
Or if you're in the line and they're trying to figure out whether you can dump the hand grenade you still have into the trash can before you get to the amnesty box. You don't want to drop it in the amnesty box, but if you drop it in the trash can, is it going to make a loud noise like, huh, I'm a grenade? You know? So,
Or can you distract
A member of our own TSA enough that 5 weapons can go through his little X-ray thing? I'm not going to say who or when or where. 5 weapons went through his little X-ray machine, all of which were clearly visible, but which he never looked around to see because we were so entertaining.
how about those cubs?
Yeah.
You seen those cubs lately?
I think that we had to leave that out because of the circumstances of it, but it happened.
Yeah.
Gents, why don't you walk us through, I think you had mentioned, Jeff, walk us through, the summary, the synopsis of this book, Vagabonds, that is out now on Kindle. It's going to be out in the hardback.
Read me the chapter title and I'll give you a 2-sentence synopsis.
Oh, I'm gonna have to bring that up.
Oh,
You know, they're sitting
The chapters?
Yeah.
Because this cord runs over to the edge of the table. See that?
Yep.
Stinkers.
yeah, I can reach out and
Oh yeah, we can give each other handies under the table while we're live streaming. It's amazing.
Sweet
We
Jesus.
already have.
can do,
What are we doing for supper today?
The
Okay.
first chapter is called Sometimes a Great Notion. I remember that.
yeah, Birth of a Notion.
Yeah, Birth of a Notion, yeah.
There
That's
are
basically about us getting out and trying to figure out what to do and getting our first
Law enforcement.
law enforcement contract with the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and that which was the first thing that we did right after the service. That's what that chapter's about.
and then there are carpetbaggers in our soup.
Yeah, well, that's we got hooked up with a kind of a con man from Vegas who,
Kind of.
yeah, who had a lot of stories about companies that he owned and merged with us,
And remember, there is no ego in business.
and
Except mine.
wound up leaving us with a $1,100 bar bill at our favorite saloon and a $25,000 debt to the mob.
Holy shit.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I want to ask you how you resolve that, but I also want people to
Read the book.
read your book.
Yeah, well, they read the book and
Read the book. Read the book.
Looking
At this
for
point, read the book.
yes, looking for high tech in all the low places.
Lincoln worked for a little research and development company that was doing some of the most.
interesting.
Can you start that over?
So we went to work for a little research and development company after the con man left us flat. They hired us doing a lot of really cutting edge high tech stuff. And we did a little world travel with them. We went to France and we went to Malaysia and we went to Taiwan
In
and
Berlin.
Berlin. And we did a lot of interesting things with that company.
You went to Berlin when the wall was still up.
Yeah, there's a whole chapter about that later on. So
Very famous bordello mentioned in there. You might want to pay attention to that, particularly a couple of paragraphs.
I definitely will. And for those of you who are kind of young, there actually used to be a wall in Germany that separated East Germany from West Germany.
Oh yeah.
It was the anti-fascist rampart put up by East Germany.
Yeah.
Remake of the Wild Bunch.
Oh, that's the first half. That's Bustamante.
Bustamante.
That's the first half of a 2-chapter thing about a huge training. At that point, the biggest one we'd ever done, about $800,000. Training the security staff and bodyguards for the World Trade Center of Mexico City.
Wow.
And we did it in 2 parts. So that chapter is about the part that was down in Mexico. And then the next chapter after that, Assassins on the Hotel Roof, is about when we brought 50 of them up to San Bernardino, California to do the second half of the training.
The advanced course.
Yeah.
Send lawyers, guns, and money.
I'm not sure what the that's the Jim, I won't use his name, the banker.
Oh, yeah, the banker.
Yeah, I go to the Philippines and Nick goes to Europe, both working with the same rather deranged banker.
The Yakuza, the gentleman with the missing digits and the tattoos, are involved in this. They had a bank instrument that was drawn on a Japanese bank using Zenichi Norin assets. Zenichi Norin are those gentlemen with the tattoos and the missing digits. And they own all the rice all over Japan. So it's a $200 million bank instrument, and we have to recover it.
Holy shit.
Wow.
And at the same time, the guy wants to find Yamashita's gold in the Philippines. So I go to the Philippines with him.
That's why I sent him, because I understand Swiss banks, and the normal protocol and that. But if you're going to go upriver in a parang looking for somebody that just showed you 50 ounces of gold, you need younger people that have more stamina than I have.
Oh man, I got to read it. I read a whole book about Yamashita's gold. I mean, it's a fascinating story.
Oh, God.
And it's still on
I was
TV.
immersed in it, and it is completely nuts what's going on. There's a whole industry in the Philippines of pretending to know where now.
Right.
Read the chapter, you'll find it. Like,
Okay.
Was it
Winds up with a head in a duffel bag at the end.
Was it the original Nigerian prince scam? In a way.
no. The thing in Germany, recovering the financial instrument, which was an international bill of trade, involved some very interesting fellows that I've known before, and the Russian mob, and very wealthy people in Austria and Germany that owned a Ferrari dealership, and that was, and a Swiss banker who's the most amoral man I've ever met in my life. Absolutely. Oh, this guy was. Someday, like I said in the chapter, I dream of being behind his house on the hill. Real
Scumbag.
shite.
You guys have to read this book. I mean, honestly, I know that both Jack and I will. And we would have, had we known it was out already. We thought it was getting released soon. Ishtar and Other Bad Plots.
That's Desert Storm. That's about
First Gulf War.
the first Gulf War, Desert Storm. I got activated, went back in the Army.
Oh no, he went back because somebody had to have an ID card.
Yeah,
That was the plan.
That's what they-
joined the reserves and got activated. Got his ID card.
we discovered that we had access to an intelligence source that went all the way to the Iraqi general staff.
You discovered that you had access to an intelligence source?
Went all the way to the Iraqi general staff.
Okay.
So I came back to the States to try to sell it, which wasn't easy. You think, hey, we're going to war with these people, and I have an intelligence source right into their general staff, and people say, who the hell are you?
Have you been cleared by Sympact Pro?
Well, we finally found the right guy, but he told me this would be much easier for me if somebody had a military ID card. So I said, I'll go back. So I re-enlisted and went to the 12th Special Forces Group Reserves and then shuttled myself off to Desert Storm.
How do you look larger than me?
I am larger than you.
It's an optical illusion.
Yeah.
So I'll lean back now. You lean forward now. You'll look.
There you
Now,
go. There you go.
when you
Yours overwhelms everything.
when you went
I think
in,
it just ate a bullshit.
I had to turn the air conditioning up because it's actually on fire.
when you went into the reserve, did you have any idea that you would actually get called up and have to go do the Army thing again?
No, not really. I
had been called, and I knew where I was going.
If we can make an Interpol warrant disappear, what makes you think he was going back to be a supply clerk in Fort Lewis?
Right. Oh, I don't.
Follow us, will you? Take notes. Zach.
I'm having a hard time keeping up, but I'm doing it.
So are we, actually.
Tiny hostages in Maghreb. We talked about that.
That's the first half of Algeria, and
Right.
running for our lives across the rim of Africa is the second half of Algeria.
Next.
Poncho and Lefty.
That's the first Mexican kidnapping recovery.
Okay.
And is that the one where you worked with the government forces?
Well, yeah. Well, anytime you do anything in Mexico, if you're working on your own, you're stupid. And you're liable going to end up, somebody's going to uncover your body when they start digging a new freeway.
Yeah.
Well, if you're working in Mexico, you better find yourself a way to work with the police. That means you have to vet the police. I was very fortunate for us that my padrino, my godfather, is the senior partner in the most prestigious law firm in Mexico. So, he does... put it this way. He's had kidnap cases where when the kidnapper found out he was involved, they brought the victim back. That's the kind of reputation he has. He only services the Lebanese and the Sephardic Jewish community and the very upper 1% of the economic sector. So that's who I got my clients from, was basically from my partner down there. And we always had the backup from the padrino. Don't do anything in Mexico stupidly. Carrying guns, getting involved with explosives.
Yeah, like old Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Do a Ross Perot raid or anything like that. You've got to plan it out. You have to find the right people to work with and then follow their plan. Well, all you are there for, because the way it arranged this is we had the technology that we could track the money.
Uh-huh.
Anybody that touched the money, wherever it was at, we could go find it. And we could find it at night, like a bloodhound.
Uh-huh.
So in that regard, we are a contractor. So under kidnap and risk insurance, you don't, the insurance company doesn't give you $30 million. They allow you to raise $30 million and pay the ransom, and then they reimburse you if you follow the rule. And if you're not involved with the police, you have broken the rule.
Okay.
So, that's kind of your guideline there. So
Yeah.
That's what happened with them. We did recoveries using state police units in 3 different locations. They were all special units formed up for anti-kidnapping. Really, truly brave men who get paid really squat for what they do.
Yeah. Now,
They pay for their own gas, they pay for their own bullets, and they pay for their own hotel rooms when they're on stakeout.
that's amazing. I think if you ask people in America to pay for their own bullets, you wouldn't have too many. Well, I don't know.
It's common. It's common for the victim's family to give them a tip.
Yeah.
For phenom. That's decided between them and police commander. But they put that in a slush fund, which they use for that and other cases.
Yeah.
And also for the widows and orphans
Yeah.
of those men.
I guess this whole thing about 2 sentences for each chapter went right out.
Oh,
That's-
sorry, I don't know what happened. Now, and going on,
No, it's fascinating. How the different countries handle it. Because I think we take so much for granted here in America that even as kind of broken sometimes as our system is, the idea that that these police officers, these highly trained police officers that focus on kidnapping, part of their living comes from tips. The whole.
no, don't go down that road. That's
Okay.
not true.
Oh, okay.
Right.
The
That's not
tips
true.
just go into the slush fund.
They get their stipend and their salary from the state government.
Okay.
But at times, when the family does feel that they should do something for them, there's an apparatus there for it, and it's very tightly controlled.
Okay.
And it's not like they give the commander a couple 100,000 pesos.
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Pancho, let's do By the Dawn's Early Light.
That's the second Mexican kidnapping operation.
Who thought of these titles? Just out of curiosity, because they're great chapter titles.
Both of us.
Yeah.
You thought of some, I thought of some.
Nigeria with Snow.
Bosnia by bus.
Yeah.
Nigeria was, yeah. That's our first serious interface with the Russians.
The first serious interface with the Russians.
Yeah. Starts with Russians in America and ends up with us in Russia.
And Kazakhstan.
In Kazakhstan. Fascinating.
Well,
It leads to Kazakhstan.
Into the Hindu Kush with the Beast of the Baskervilles.
that's actually when we're on our way to Kazakhstan and we have a plane crash. We live out on the Siberian tundra with the Cossacks for a little while before they get the plane back. The plane, where it's not a plane crash, the plane has a malfunction, it has to make an emergency landing.
We talk. You told us this whole story in the bonus segment we did for the last episode.
Right.
So you guys can go and check that out for the
that's
people
right.
who are Patreon supporters.
That's right. That was
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
And anybody who
That's
hasn't
that chapter.
anybody who hasn't flown one of those airlines before, I mean, you guys can attest to this. Like, you have people bringing livestock on. I mean, just everything is on this plane when you're flying like these, small, locally owned or whatever they are. I don't know if it was that, if it was a large plane or a small plane, but it's interesting what you see on these flights sometimes.
Oh, yeah. We saw a KGB agent get the shit kicked out of him by a tribe of gypsies on a plane from Moscow to Anchorage once.
That is fascinating.
All right.
They left the body in a seat with a jacket over him like he was drunk. Don't be looking down there.
Bosnia by bus. We talked about the spy who slid in from the cold.
That's Berlin.
Okay. Latte on the Spanish Main.
That's when we tried to start a cruise ship shore excursion in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. And it was put out of business 12 days after it started by 9/11.
Oh shit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, we got everything built. I was standing on the rooftop drinking my latte or whatever.
The latte part is because Penguini had to have a freaking latte from some girl in Charlotte Amalie every single morning.
Every single
And he
morning.
always made us about 2 hours late getting to work.
Soaring hopes and soaring temperatures.
That's about a big training for the Marine Corps. Train about 1,600 Marines for pre-deployment to Iraq right after the whole kerfluffle got started.
Mm-hmm. Port-au-Prince is dying.
That's a Haiti earthquake.
Oh shit. And
Yeah, we were there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I became the most hated man in Christendom. because I called Madam Secretary a waste of flesh.
You mean Hillary?
Yes, that would be the
No,
one.
these kids aren't as stupid as they look.
I am.
On the road to Mandalay.
That's me going. Me and Penguini went to Burma to train the Karen National Liberation Army. And the second half of the chapter is mostly me staggering around Chiang Mai, Thailand with a nearly fatal dose of dengue fever.
Holy shit, man. You guys were everywhere. Terry and some very odd pirates.
That is me. That is the Spider Woman and a guy that used to be in the 10th group and a Norwegian billionaire and some other people trying to start a counter-piracy operation in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Somalia.
Wow. Okay.
Never really got up and going, but it was an interesting
What,
event.
is there a particular reason why it didn't get up and I mean, you don't have to go into the whole story because again, we do want people.
Because everybody got pissed off at each other and
Egos.
yeah.
Egos. It's what ruins most of them.
Interesting.
The Heart of Darkness.
That's the first half of Africa. That starts in Guinea. I think we mentioned when we were doing that special before about how we were once accused of overthrowing the government of Guinea.
Yeah.
It starts there and gets into some other African stuff.
And The Lost Empire of Prester John.
More Africa. That's when Nick got this place up in Ethiopia and had a pet hippopotamus or something. I don't know.
Say that one more time. Had a what?
A pet hippopotamus.
Pet hippopotamus.
Who wouldn't
What's
have
so
it?
strange about that?
No, it's not. Who
You've
wouldn't
been in
have
the Ranger Battalion? So
Who-
what's strange about me having a hippo?
No, who would not have a pet hippopotamus given the opportunity?
Exactly.
Sounds legit. Man, so you guys were all over the world, man, getting into trouble. This is awesome.
3/4 of a century old, for Christ's sake. Eventually, you'll have this kind of history.
I don't think anyone.
Tallywhacker again.
I don't think anyone's going to have quite this kind of history.
Yeah, no.
You guys did some pretty unique jobs.
When I'm 75, I'll be talking about the podcast that I was on for the last
35 years.
Yeah.
We tell you back in 2021.
It was rough. We had technical issues.
It's not too late. We know about some stuff.
Yeah?
And what blood type are you? You don't want to be a B positive?
No,
positive.
sir. I'm AB positive.
Lying little shits.
Well,
no, I'm O.
Maybe
That
we
goes with everybody.
maybe we save that for the bonus segment if you guys are game for it. Talk about what you're up to now.
As long as we can pee first.
Of course you can. Of course you can.
Yeah.
Guys,
We haven't eaten yet.
we'll wrap this thing up, gents. Next episode is going to be, if everything goes according to plan, Peter McAleese. I got to get comms back up with him, but he served in the British SAS, Rhodesian SAS, Pathfinder in South Africa. He was a mercenary in Angola, and then he was also hired to go assassinate Pablo Escobar. So I'm hoping that I can reestablish comms with Peter.
I got a great Rhodesian story that didn't make it into the book.
You have a one more time, Jeff?
A great Rhodesia story that didn't make it into the book.
All right, maybe on the bonus segment we'll hit it.
I know the Colombian general tracked down Pablo and killed him.
There we go. We got to hear it. So, but we'll do it on the next segment.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, you guys had this reputation within maybe a small community or whatever for going out and conducting these types of operations. Did anybody ever approach you for things that were maybe say on the shadier side? Like they're like, oh, these guys are game for whatever. They'll do whatever.
Yeah, well, we're not.
Right. No, I believe that.
There are certain lines we won't cross.
But
We'll bend the law.
sure.
We won't necessarily break it.
And we definitely will not break the U.S. law.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like doing kidnap recoveries in the United States, you don't do them.
Yeah.
That's the FBI. That's their
Yeah.
venue. They get very upset, very bitchy about things like that.
And now, are you saying this from experience?
Yeah, I mean, we had things that came to us in the States, and then we said, hey, man, call the FBI, man. That's their job. That's what they're getting paid for.
I got an FBI jacket with a code name.
Stop.
I think we have one question, one viewer
Oh,
question.
yeah, I think so.
Let me scroll up to it. Anthony S., thank you very much. With Nick's interest in like Nazi stuff or that historical period, what kind of stories did he shake out of the SS connections? I know he had to investigate if Hitler escaped, right?
Actually, I met those gentlemen through, I think it was through the forestry service in Germany, most of them. My family's German. I had two uncles fight in the Wehrmacht. Germany is full of connections, and that's how I got to it. I used those connections to do what I was doing for the U.S. military, and in the process, I was able to establish a relationship with some really unique people.
Yeah, and I think that like a lot of people don't understand that the SS, like the people who served in World War II in Germany were very, very anti-communist also, and a lot of them would hop services after World War II to fight against communism or Russians, wherever they could.
The Waffen SS was a combat unit. They were also used for the death squads in that film, but they were in the main they were shock troops. Like the SS Panzer Division, the SS Grenadiers, and the different formations, they were used as shock troops to either make an attack, fill a gap in the defense, etc. Then you had the Gestapo, and you know where most of the people from the Gestapo came from. Right. They controlled all of Western Europe and terrorized the world with less than 8,000 members. The Gestapo. Worldwide, there were never more than 8,000 people. Now they had adjunct units like the death squads and that were attached to them. But 8,000 people. Do you know where those people came from? What their profession was before they were drafted into the Gestapo?
I think policemen.
They were what?
They were police officers. In the main, they were detectives and police officers. That's where the Gestapo came from. They got rid of all the guys that didn't feel like they did. Why not? They knew everybody. They knew how to do criminal investigation. They knew how to do counterintelligence and that, because that's what they've been doing. You get your connections where you find them.
Yeah,
we found connections in Mongolia for spare parts for chipping machines to a rock band. It just happened to be there. They were Mongolia. Have you ever seen Mongolian rock bands?
No, sir.
No.
The Who band, but it's HU.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the British Who, WHO. This is HU.
Look them up.
One of the best rock bands ever.
Oh yeah.
The Who band. I'm gonna.
Their best song is called Wolf Totem.
Jim G says we need to get you guys a decent mic and then have you come back to tell some more stories. I agree. We'll have to FedEx you a microphone at some point.
Or we could pick a really expensive bar and everybody get together and buy us drinks.
Yeah,
even better.
I'm down for that.
So, guys, go and check out Vagabonds. It's up on Amazon right now. You can go get it for your Kindle, and if you want a hard copy, it's going to be out later this month. Jim, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us tonight, telling some of these stories, man. I really appreciate it, you guys.
They just call me Jim.
Yeah, but he was going off the last comment he just read. So
didn't I say Jim and I didn't say Jeff and Nick. Sorry.
You can call me first base.
After you said that we were smarter than we look, we go and do this. But no, but Nick and Jeff, thank you so much, guys. Definitely check out their book.
Try and keep your nose clean between now and the next time.
Never.
Remember, in the immortal words of Barry Goldwater, extremism in the pursuit of liberty is no vice. Tell that to the perfume princes of the Pentagon next time they come around.